and the way the flaps overlap. This flap is going to overlap this one and this one. And I started thinking about how the actual pictures are going to look when they're in the album and partially sticking out from under this flap. And I decided I didn't really like that look. So to solve that problem, I've created a small pocket. And so this pocket is going to go right on the edge of the page, and it'll still have the same pattern. But when you open it up, the pocket will be holding the photo mats that you can slip out. So I'm going to go ahead and adhere these two small pockets, and they are 2 3/4 by 11. 2 3/4 by 11. Score a 1/2 inch on 3 of the 4 sides. Okay, I'm going to get those in real quick, and then I'll get them covered. And that is not, this piece that I'm talking about right now is not covered in the first tutorial, because I decided to add it at the last minute. One of the dangers of taking too long to get your album together, you keep engineering it as you go. Okay, I'm going to turn it sideways so I can see my 3 edges as usual, and I'm going to get a contrast page underneath. There we go. So this is just going to come as close to the edge as possible, and then this top flap is just going to overlay it slightly. And then this will mask, you'll get all the benefit of the beautiful paper, but it'll mask your photo mat so it'll still look even and pretty when it's closed. Oops, that grabbed a little faster than I was ready for. Maybe I should use some glue. Turning out to be a lovely day here in San Diego. I think all the storms are behind us for a while. Okay, so we're doing this on, right now I'm doing this on page 4, and then we'll do the same thing on page 5. Okay, let's see, I've got all my edges lined up. There we go. So there is my nice little pocket. It's right here, and I will put the same paper that I had originally planned. So this paper is not going to go to waste. I just trimmed it at 2 1/4, and then the second half will go on top, just like that. So it's not a huge change to the aesthetic of the book. And then you can see this flap just slightly overlays my new pocket. Okay, now I'm going to add one to page 5, rotating the book so I can see my 3 corners. I'll get my contrast sheet in and my tape off. And then we'll work on getting a designer paper on top. This, without a doubt, page 4 and 5, the layout is my favorite. The left and right just completely mirror each other. And so it's very aesthetically pleasing. Made me wonder why I don't do that more often on the other pages, but it makes for what looks like just a huge layout when they're side by side, like that. Okay, just working on getting my corners where I want them and laying it down. Double check, everything looks very straight. I'm very happy with that. So that is in. Okay, slight modification. Burnish these. Make sure it's got a good hold, good grip. Okay. And now I'm going to switch my contrast paper, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm trying to decide which one I want to do first. Okay, I'm kind of all over the place. I laid a couple pieces down. I wasn't happy with it, so I snuck off and trimmed out a couple new pieces. And so now we're going to go ahead and lay down the new base mats for the pocket page. So I've got tape on this one. So let's get the tape off and some glue on it, and we'll get this laid down. And I don't think I'm going to get very far today because it looks like I'm running out of light again. It took me so long. I was fussing around with the mats that I had previously cut, and they just weren't going down for me, so I had to start over. As you can see, I pulled something up because I just really wasn't happy with it. It happens. happens, it happens. Let's get some glue down. That's my husband in the background. He's out working hard. So originally I had planned kind of a pieced collage here, and it just wasn't fitting the way I liked, and it was really hard to deal with the page because there's a slight bow because it's now getting full of designer paper, so I couldn't get my margins the way I wanted them to. So I simplified it by having one large piece, and that way I've only got to deal with really the top and bottom margin and nothing in between, like what I was originally trying to do. So, lesson learned, if I'm going to do those fancy pieces, then I really need to probably lay those down before they go in the book. Which, by the way, I think I mentioned it, but the next book I put together, I think I'm going to try to construct it with the pages out and add them to the actual album at the end, just to see how that construction process works. And if I like it better, if I can get straighter margins. Okay, so now I've got the top piece cut, but I was kind of going back and forth on which pattern I wanted. And the adjacent pieces are going to look like this. Is that right? Mm-hmm. So I kind of like this pattern, but I think with this it's too busy. So we're going to go with the solid. So I'll add some tape to that and get it down. And we'll finally have the pocket page base down for page 4. And then I'm going to flip over and we're going to do the same thing on page 5. And then we'll go to the next mechanism on 4 and then back to 5 and so forth. So the last time I was working on the album, I was talking about using this acrylic piece, which comes from the quilting section of your craft store. And I said I'm always losing it and it's hard to hold on to. I should probably add a knob. So that's what I did. I added, these are those little sticky pop dots that go right on the back of your telephone. And that's what I added. And I have found it's made it easier to work with, and I'm misplacing it less. So we'll see how long that lasts. Okay, get my tape up and some glue down. And like I said, because the page is bowing slightly, because of the bulk of the designer paper, I'm going to go ahead and add some glue to my tape. I don't always do that, but I do need a little bit of time to slide around because of the way the page is bowing. It won't lay down completely flat, so I'll need to wiggle it around a little bit. Slide this back into my view a little bit. I'm just looking for even margins, top, bottom, and then also between the designer paper and that little strip that I added earlier. And that looks really good. I'm happy with that. Okay, much better, much easier dealing with just margins on the top and on the bottom and nothing in the middle. Originally I had planned four pieces to go here, so there would have been a split down the middle. Okay, so that is the base part of the pocket page for page 4. I'm going to close all of page 4, and then we're going to shift the book over and do the same thing on page 5. Let me get my contrast in underneath. I've got my tape already, so I just need to get some glue down. If you're new to the channel, thanks for tuning in. We provide inspiration in hopes that you guys will click on our shop and do your graphic 45 shopping at Scrap and Create. This is a free service we offer, and the purpose is to really generate some new customers and sales over on our online shop, www.scrap_n, the letter N, create. And if you are enjoying our tutorials, it looks like this needs to be trimmed just a little more, so I'm going to pull that up real quick before it dries. Like I said, we really would appreciate it if you took the time to go on over to our shop, take a look around, see if there's anything there that you have to have, and to you know, make your graphic 45 purchase from us. We'd appreciate it, and it helps us fund the projects that I do, as well as the projects that you see from Christine Riley. Okay, so that didn't go in quite straight, so I'm right now just looking to see where I'm going to need to trim it. It looks like I just need to take a smidgen off one corner, and I'm going to do that over here. Sorry that took a second, but I had to get the glue back off my cutting board before it dried. Okay, let's see. Is that going to work for me now? Yes, it is. Okay, let's freshen up the glue. I'm going to re-ink the edge I just trimmed. And the problem was, as much as I love that trimmer, like I said, it cuts perfect right angles. So if the page I'm laying it on has any variation at all, I got to go back and trim it. And it looked like it was just a smidge, so I fixed it, and it should go down nice now. Hopefully I've got the right side. Yeah. Okay, it looks pretty good. And then this piece goes on top, so I'm going to add some tape and put that down real quick. Okay, very anxious to get this done because I really want to get to the next phase, which is embellishing. Getting out the tags and pockets and chipboard and figuring out where all that goes, which I do last. I don't do that as I go. I typically design the pages, get the designer paper coordinate cut, installed, and then I come back and figure out how to use all my goodies throughout the album. So they're sitting set aside, ready to go. As soon as I get the rest of the designer paper loaded. Okay, the rest of the paper should be, hopefully, have tape on them. That's what I think. Like I said, this was sort of a last-minute design change because I wasn't happy with the way it was going together, so hopefully this is the last of you having to watch me tape, which isn't very exciting. Put a little contrast up here so I can see my edges. Come up a little higher. There we go. Okay, that is in. Okay, so that's page 5. And then that closes. We're back over to page 4. And now on page 4, I think what I want to do is lay out these 2 pieces, the 2 flaps. And yep, good. We've got some tape going, so that should go down quickly. And I'm going back and forth because it's a mirror, but also because, I mean, it's an exact mirror, not just the flapped design, but all the pattern papers are exactly the same too. So in the case where I've repeated the page design in the rest of the album, the papers won't match exactly. The page design, it'll function the same way, but I use different designer paper. So it's really these 2 pages that are done that way. And I'm really happy with the way it turned out. I'm trying to decide, yeah, this is the right way. Solid on the bottom and the print on the top. Trying to nudge it a little to the top. There we go. Okay, that's done. You can see the tape I'm using on these was really thin. It just happened to be what I had. And for the most part, the tape is really intended to keep the glue from bleeding out. Hold the edges down and keep the glue from bleeding out. So it doesn't have to be thick. I think this is 1/8 of an inch, and normally my go-to is 1/4 inch and 3/8 of an inch if it's a hinge. And of course wider if it's like the cover of the album, because you just want to get as much adhesive on as possible. Okay. All right, looking at these 3 sides, trying to get nice even margins. Which is not happening because my finger's stuck under it. So I'm going to change the orientation of the book. Here we go. I like that better. Try to get out of my own way. That looks nice. Okay, we're in. Okay, so now we're going to do the same thing on page 5. And it's these 2 flaps. And as soon as I find the paper. Here it is. Solid pattern. Okay. Kind of on a roll, even though I'm running out of light. I'm going to try to work with some light in the room, see if that helps. There we go. And see if I can't keep going, because I really want to get this video out. Let's get my contrast piece. and then I'm going to change the orientation of the book. So I've got those 3 edges in front of me. Okay, that's it. Let's do that one more time. Oops. Okay. Now I just want to make sure, yeah, that's the top. So this is the top. I want to make sure my words are going in the right direction, and they are. Perfect. All right, so that is page 5, the flaps for page 5. Okay, now I'm going to do the page 5 top of these flaps, which is this beautiful paper. Probably my favorite in the collection, and I think I pointed that out earlier. And this is from the 12 by 12 pack, and I can tell because of the size, the scale of the pattern. So I used this pattern from both the 8 by 8 and the 12 by 12 in this album. Okay, I got my glue on. And then once I get this one down, I'm going to stop for a second, back up a little bit, and then make sure you guys are looking at the right level, or explain. I know it's not easy when I've got both sides open to see exactly where I am. Okay, I'm going to rotate this around. Okay, that is it. I'm going to burnish. And then, like I said, I'm going to stop for just a second. So I'm going to close all of page 4. So it's closed now. So when this is closed, it'll look like this. So this is the very top flap, which we haven't done anything with. The second flap, which I added a pocket to. And then underneath all of that are these 2 flaps that open this way. So we've got the base of the pocket page done, the inside of these 2 flaps done, and I'm working on the outside of this flap. I know it's a lot, but it's worth it. Being very messy. I've got tape everywhere. And because I'm doing 2 pages at once, I have paper everywhere too. Usually I only have one set of paper out at a time. Okay, I'm going to use this contrast sheet. Needs to shift up just a little bit higher. done. Burnish, burnish, burnish. Okay. So now I'm going to close page 5 after I get this little bit of glue out. And then we're going to go back over to page 4. And we've already done the inside, the base, the 2 insides. Now we're going to do the 2 outsides. And it's easy because it's exactly the same pattern. And these already have tape, so they'll go quickly. And while I'm getting the tape off, I'll go ahead and shift the orientation of the book so that I've got my 3 edges next to me. This floral pattern is directional also, but the words in the background are very, very faint. So even if you get it in upside down, I don't think anybody will notice. But it's just something to keep in mind. I always try to get my directions correct, even if it's faint. Someone will notice, or you'll know anyway. All right, let's get my glue in. See, the top is this way, and I'm looking because I know I got the princess word in right. So the top is this way, bottom's that way, and this is the top. So that looks pretty good. Just needs to shift a little on the bottom. Before it goes in. There we go. That's beauteous. When I get done, I got to go back and do a little bit of cleanup because I've got glue on my hands. I'm leading trace around, but that's easy enough to clean up. We won't be doing that right now. Okay. Making sure that the words are in the right orientation, and they are. I'm going to shift my light because I'm in my own light better. Or is it? I'm nudging a lamp over. Okay. Oops. Not quite. I shift it. All right, page 4 and 5 are coming along. Okay, so as you can see, we've got our flaps on the left and right. They open this way. And of course I'm showing it to you upside down, but you get the gist. I'm going to turn it right side up again. And then the next thing we're going to work on is, I think I want to work on the pocket page. So get that out of the way. It's pretty straightforward. We've got a strip that goes here, and then here it is, and a strip that goes here. And because I didn't have quite enough of this pattern, I'm going to have to lay down a decorative strip, and I've already cut it. And it is from the collection page, and it says if the crown fits. And I'm just going to lay that down right in here. So I'm going to first place the large piece, then the pocket piece, and then I'll come back and add that strip. Shift the orientation so I can see these edges here, and what I'm trying to do here is make sure I steer clear of the score line, just so that the page can move freely. With a nice clean even margins. Steering clear of the score line. Got a little bit of glue came out. Burnish, burnish, burnish. So that is in. So the next piece will be the piece to cover the pocket. So I was just dry fitting real quick to make sure before I get the tape and the glue on that it's the size I need. Sometimes you need to trim it down or cut another piece. And it's luckily the right piece, right size. At this point I am out of spares. So place this in here so I can see these three edges, and I want a nice straight margin. And that looks good, and it's down. Okay, so that is the what I'm calling the large flap. So if you, when you're looking at the front, this is the small flap, this was the large flap, and then these are the internal flaps. So, okay, so now you can see we have this gap that we have to address, and that is where I had previously cut a strip. Here it is. This little strip that says if the crown fits is going to fit just perfectly right there. Okay. Add some glue, we'll get that done. Just taking a look at the edges to make sure they were inked, and they were. Sometimes I forget, especially on these strips, they're really hard to manage. Okay. Now I have a choice. I can have the words read this way or that way, and I think I want the words so that when you open it, you read it this way, left to right. And look how beautiful that is. It's just a nice, super nice, interesting, and all it is a little strip of paper detail here. And then when I'm complete with the album, this will be a pocket that'll hold a nice photo mat. And of course you can still put photos here, but I actually added the pocket because when it was closed, I just thought it would be awkward to see part of a photo. So that's kind of how I solved that problem. Just if you're curious why I chose that design element. So that looks good. Okay, what I'm noticing too is even though I have a magnet in here, the design paper is getting so thick, I think I'm going to have to add another magnet here between the two to hold it in place. I don't think the top page will stay shut once I add yet another layer of paper there and here. So something to consider. In the meantime, I'm going to go add page 5. So I'm changing the orientation. Got my yellow paper here and here, and for whatever reason I haven't inked or taped them. And I think that's because I added this design, this pocket at the last minute. Okay, done. And if you guys are curious, what I'm using to ink is, it's called Powder Puffs. And I really like it. It kind of goes on chalky. And Julie's the one that told me about it. And what I like best about it is if you drop it, it's not so wet that it just ruins anything that it falls on. And for me, that's a big deal because I'm constantly dropping things. Okay, I'm looking for my fin tape, which I don't see. Here it is. Little pop dot. When I was just bragging about how I wasn't losing it, and now I can't find it. So in an effort to save time, I'm going to just use my fingers, which is not my preferred method. Okay, and just like a page 4, I'm going to lay down the big piece first, then the pocket, and then I will add that little decorative strip at the very end. Trying to keep my work surface reasonably clean. I don't like a cluttered space to work in, but I also, when I'm watching a tutorial, don't want to see a cluttered space. So hopefully it's not too bad for you guys. Okay, so we're going to open the small flap, and in here, this is the large flap. Inside the large flap, I'm laying down the large piece, which is going close to the score line, toward the outside of the book. That is lovely. It's in, burnish. Okay, and now, as I had previously mentioned, I'm going to do the pocket and the decorative strip last. And you may have noticed on the small flap, I've got this little decorative strip added. And I went ahead and glued that down when I was designing it because it was so small. I was afraid I was accidentally going to throw it away. So sometimes I'll do that if I know I'm going to add a strip, because they are so small. They're really easy to accidentally toss. Looks like I had a little excess tape there. Got it. course, the problem with that is if you don't like it later, it's too bad. You're committed. Can't pull it up, especially those strips because I use glue. It's too small to use tape. Okay, so looking for even margins. And then, again, this one will have that decorative strip set right in between. And here it is. So I'm going to turn this so that I can make sure my orientation is right before I put the words down. Okay, so that's what I want. So this one, I'm going to read left to right this way. This is left to right that way. Get some glue on it and lay it down. And then these two, that margin's a little bit bigger than the... Shoot, I don't like that. Let's see if I can't get it up. I'm not happy with this margin and that margin, so I'm trying to lift this. I want to shift it down because when the page is closed, you won't see the top margin as much. And if you're gonna have an error, I think I'd rather have it on the inside than the outside. That is, if I can get it to come up. When I rush. I think this is the end of today. Once I fix this, I'm going to set the book aside so that I don't make any more errors that I have to fix. Okay, I'm going to use my spatula here to try to lift the edges. It's okay if the black tears as long as it's inside what's going to be my margin. Giving away right there. And down to the last little smidgen. Let go. There we go. So you can see it's torn, but again, it's going to be inside the margin, so I'm not really that concerned about it. That wasn't very pretty. What do you do? Because it is the center of the book and those two margins face each other, I think if they're off, it's going to be very displeasing. So I think it's worth the effort to relay it. I'm trying to stand on top so I can see both sides at the same time. Hopefully you're not getting a whole bunch of hair. Much better. Okay. All right. Okay, I'm back. It got late on me and it's a little bit dark, but I am going to try to forge ahead with just with my lamps here. And I did a little test run. It looks like it's coming out clear enough. So you guys will notice a difference in the colors from the natural light to this artificial light, but I still think you can get enough detail to keep working on your mini album. So when we stopped last time, I was working on this pocket page and then adding this little detail strip. So these two sides are done, and now I want to work on the inside covers. So, or the inside of each of these flaps. So I'm going to scoot it over a little bit. I'm going to work on the page 4 first, and here's what I have for the inside of that flap. I had some little glue dots kind of holding these in place. So I'm going to take those off and then get these oriented right, get some glue on them and get them down. So let's see, this is going to go on the bottom. This is going to go on the top, and then I have this decorative. Somewhere I have a decorative strip that goes in between. And at the moment, I don't see it. So actually, let's set this aside. I'll come back to it when I find the strips. Let's open the large flap. And I do know where the decorative strip is here, so we can get this one finished. So we're going to put the trellis, I think, on the bottom, and the solid on the top, and then we've got this, actually, I want to flip it. I'm going to put the trellis on the top, the solid on the bottom, and then this decorative strip in between. So we're going to do this on the inside of the large left flap on page 4, and the same thing on page 5. It'll be the large right inside flap. Okay, let me get my pick tool, and where's my glue? I cleaned my desk, now I can't find anything. Here it is. Okay, so we're coming to the end of page 4 and 5. I'm just rolling off these little glue dots that I was using to hold it in place to kind of keep my paper sorted until I was ready to actually put them down permanently. Okay. I'm going to change the orientation of my book. So that I need a contrast sheet. What happens, I cleaned everything up, so I had to take everything back out again. Okay, here we go. So there's some shadows, I apologize, but like I said, I want to get this video out, so I'm going to go ahead and work through it. And just looking for even margins. Make sure I'm doing this right. This is on the, yeah, this is the bottom. This will be the top piece. Move my contrast paper over a little. And then when I get these two down, swing the whole thing around and do page 5. It's getting kind of late here. I'm not used to working after, or taping, videotaping after the sun goes down. It does make a big difference, at least for me, because this little den that I work in has actually no overhead lighting. So everything is a desk lamp. So I'm always in my own light. That's what I'm going to get myself for Christmas, some better lighting. All right. And then I don't have to worry about just doing all this during the day. So that's in, and then this is our little decorative strip that's going to go right here. And it's sticking a little because I know I've got a glue dot on the back. So I'm going to roll that off. And then I also have, I noticed I had just a little pencil mark, so I'm going to use my kneaded eraser and take that off before I put glue on it. And as I mentioned before, with these strips, they're so narrow. I'm going to double check. Yeah. So this is the top, this is the bottom. These happen to be little hearts, so I want to make sure I don't put them in upside down. as I mentioned before, with these little strips, it's just impossible to do tape, so it's all glue. There we go. So wiggle that a little bit into place, and it's done. Okay, now I'm going to flip the whole thing around. Close this, flip it around, and now we're going to do page 5. Same exact design. And again, so there's the small flap and the large flap. This is going to be the inside of the large flap. This is how we had it. We have the trellis on top. We'll double check, yes, and the solid on the bottom. Well, I'm excited to hear what you guys think about this. It is kind of a, not kind of, it's a large format. You guys had asked for it, so, or at least those who had replied asked for the a larger format. So here it is, and you can definitely see, even though it's the same collection, how different you can make your albums, because you'll see that Christine's is quite a bit different than mine. Although, like I told you before, we had pretty much the same idea for the covers, but other than that, there's really nothing that they don't really look similar at all. Other than their mini albums. Okay, I think I'm starting to really like this size because you can do a lot of mechanisms because the pages are so big. Although, it takes a ton of paper, which is kind of surprising to me that just adding those couple of inches from an 8x8 to an 8x10 makes such a big difference, but it really does. So I took a break because I was running out of battery and daylight, and then it was dinner time, so blah, blah, blah. Anyway, while I was doing all that, and I was offline, I had made an error in one of my measurements, and I went back and fixed it, and I'll point that out to you. And you saw it when I was laying down my mat, how far off the margin was, and I couldn't figure out, why is that so bad? And it turns out that I had made one of my pockets an 1/16 of an inch larger than the other. And that's why my margins didn't match. And this is what I'm talking about, this pocket right here. So when I had left off, the margin on the inside of one of these pockets was really too big. So I actually took some undo, took my pocket off and trimmed it and then put it back on. And the reason it was so far off, it wasn't because of the designer paper, it was I actually made the pocket the wrong size. So always good to double check your measurements, which I didn't do. Okay, so that's in, and now it's time for this little decorative piece. I'll take off my glue dot. And it's sticking to me. Looking at this, and yeah, it does. Okay, I was trying to make sure I had inked my edges, and I had. Sometimes it's hard for me to see. Right toward the end, earlier today, my blade was getting dull, and it was turning my paper up a little bit, and I think that's why I feel like I'm seeing so much white. Okay, I'm checking to see the orientation. So princess, the word, the top is this way because I flipped the whole thing around, so I want to make sure my hearts are going the right way. And they are now, but I almost, it's good I checked because sometimes I forget if I'm working on the left or the right side when I turn it sideways. Okay, that's in. I really like these 3 patterns together. I'm pretty pleased with how that turned out. Okay, I'm gonna close that. And then I'm just gonna do a quick walkthrough. So we still have these top small flaps, and I'm standing up to make sure I'm in frame. These small flaps to decorate both inside and outside our large flap. The outside is done. The inside is done. These are the inside flaps that open to the left, and then these open to the right. Okay. So now we're going to start working on these pieces, and I'm going to start by adding the piece that goes right here. I've got them pre-cut and taped, so it should go pretty quick. And as usual, sorry, I hit my desk, I'm going to rotate it around so the edges are closest to me. I wonder if it would do me any good to have a lazy Susan and just spin my book around. I guess not. It seems like a good idea, but I don't know. Okay, time for the commercial break. If you like what you see here on our videos, please take the time to go visit our shop, and if there's anything there that strikes your fancy, we would really appreciate a purchase. Your purchase helps subsidize the cost of the videos in terms of the paper that we use, so we would appreciate that. And we try to be as fair on our pricing as possible, and offer decent shipping as well. So hopefully you will take a look at our shop, and if you're a Graphic 45 fan, you'll find what you want, because we carry everything that's Graphic 45. And then we also carry a couple of other brands, but Graphic is really our core product, which is why you see so many graphic videos. Let's see, here we go. This is really snug, so it's grabbing before I'm ready. There we go. All right, that's, oops, that is really tight. Anyways, we appreciate you stopping by the shop and taking a look around, and hopefully buying something from us. And that address would be www.scrap space letter N create scrapandcreate.com. If there's some paper lines you'd like to see us do some work in, let us know, and we will definitely consider it. Like I said, we are definitely a graphic shop, but we're like you. We like paper. So if it's good quality paper, we'll probably do something with it. Okay, I have to lift this up. Because the paper it's getting kind of thick with all the designer paper, there's a little bit of bowing going on, so I have to do a fair amount of wiggling right now. There we go. Hit this in. Let me turn that right side up. So that is the top, and it's hard to see, but these are very deep pockets. And that will be the next thing that we decorate, is the outside of the pocket. And we are going to place a large ephemera. So I had already done a small strip on either side. It's a decorative strip. You can do the same thing I did if you want to do something else, or if you don't want to fussy cut these out. This is a 1/4 inch strip. That's all you need to know. 1/4 inch strip. I trimmed the excess off the ephemera card. Typically when it's printed out, you'll see a little bit of an overrun, and it's like cream. I cut all the cream off, and then I'm just matting these on 4x6 cream cardstock, and then I'm going to apply them here. All right, I want to shift that ahead. I've got a couple of temporary glue dots here. Get those off. Part of the reason I like to trim the ephemera is a lot of times that little cream edge that goes around, it's not even centered, so there might be more cream on one side than the other. Those are the silly things that drive me to distraction, but I tried to lay it down earlier without trimming it, and I just wasn't happy with the look of it. So So I went ahead and cleaned it up, but I forgot to put tape on it. But as you can see, it's coming along nicely. So we'll get this done, and then we still have the inside of this flap, and then we are done with page 4 and 5. And I'm going to go ahead and add the tape. Here. The glue dots won't tear your paper if you roll, but if you pull straight up, it will tear. But I'm not worried about that since the card's going to get laid right on top of it. And everything is identical on both sides with the exception of the ephemera cards. So those are the only two things that are different. In the ephemera cards, you have duplicates. And so there'll be an ephemera card on the very top, and it'll be, one side will be the top of it, and the other side will be the back of it. And then I chose these two pieces of ephemera by selecting the princess prints, so that they would be facing each other. That's how I came up with these two. You can choose whichever ones you want. They'll all fit, but that's how I came up with these two. Okay, let me get the glue dots off the back. And these are just plain white cardstock. It's just ivory, but it's extremely close to the color of the Patterns in Solid Ivory that was used. And if I had enough of that, I would have done that instead of using my own cardstock, because I don't like to introduce yet another color, but I didn't have another ivory sheet, so c'est la vie. It is what it is. Okay, this looks good. I'm going to get my tape off and some glue on and get these down. To me, that's a little too high, so I'm going to wiggle that down a little. Okay, there we go. Now she's going to go here, and I have one on the other side, and I want to make sure that when I lay them down that they're facing each other. Didn't want to let go. I am putting the art glitter glue on the tape, so I have a little bit of time to wiggle it into place. I'm creating a lot of shadows, so it's very hard for me to see if I'm getting it down straight the first time. When I have good light, I can see that, and so I don't need to put the glue on the tape. But with these lamps, I'm actually creating my own shadows, so I'm wanting to buy myself a little bit of time. There we go. Okay, I'm going to scoot this down, and we're going to focus on page 4 first. Okay, and all I'm looking for is just an even margin all the way around. I get some tape and glue. And this is kind of a departure for me to matte something in cream, but I like the way it looks because there's still a little bit of black that comes across. I'll go ahead and do the second one. And then I'm going to show you the large tags that I made to go in these pockets. They're really cute. I think you'll like them. And they feature ephemera cards on the very top and then journaling space or photos below. Burnish that real quick so the pick can do its job. I'm running out of glue, or at least this container. Oh, and I mentioned before, I'll mention again, it's that time of year when you need to think about restocking your art glitter glue because we're coming up to the time frame where they stop shipping. And I can't remember, but I think it's about 3 or 4 months that they stop shipping. And man, that's inconvenient if you're in the middle of projects and you need your glue. Just looking for a very straight, clean, consistent border. And I'm happy with that. So I'm going to go ahead and burnish that, but get it down. You can tell it's very close because when I run my tool between here, it fits just perfect. With a little bit of glue overrun, so I'm cleaning that up. Okay, that's page 4. Okay, get my tape off. She's ready to go. I'll shift this back down, get centered. And looking for a straight border, coming straight off the red line there. Okay, there we go. Oh, I forgot to mention, before I put the yellow down, you can see the little bump here. I added another magnet. So I talked about that in the last video. This was part of the original design. I just added an intermary. There was already a magnet here and on the small flap, but with all the layers, it was just not quite enough. So I went ahead and added on the back side of the large flap a magnet on both left and right hand side. I forgot to mention that. I did that while I was offline. Okay, that's it. So now I want to share with you, so these are 2 deep pockets. So here's the tags that I made for the deep pockets. So these fit right inside. This is just a matted popped ephemera, and this is a matted popped just little saying. It's one of the strips from the paper collection that I trimmed off the 12 by 12. And that slips in there just like that. And this one slips in, same thing, just like that. And it nestles up right against this. So that is our center masterpiece. I'm really happy with the way that looks. So we still have the inside of the small flaps to do. And then later when I'm doing the embellishments, I'll come back and make some photo mats for these pockets. So let's get the papers lined up for here. Okay, and I know why I stopped doing that earlier is because we decided we did not have a piece to go across the center. So I'm going to pause and I'm going to trim a piece that'll fit nicely through here to separate these two. And then once I have that, I'll come back and I'll lay all these, all 6 pieces down. Okay, be right back. Okay, I'm back. I got my little strips cut. I went and found another sheet that I could trim the princess off, so I'll carry that pattern over on the inside of the small flap. So we're going to have the cream, and then we'll have the princess strip, and then we're going to have the crown. So it'll layer just like so. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get my tape off and get ready to glue down the crowns. Burnish that real quick. It didn't look like it was laying down very well. Okay. Turn it sideways. And I'm looking for just even a straight line across the bottom here and then even borders. Do the same thing on the cream. And this is the Patterns and Solids, that's that cream. But like I said, I'd used cardstock on those large tags, and it's very close to this color. Not something I usually do, but in a pinch. Okay, I'm gonna make sure I've got the paper going the right way. Yeah, I do. Okay. Let's shift that so I don't see it. There we go. Looking to carry my border straight across from the centerpiece. And now my little princess, I gotta go make sure that I've got the right orientation. Yes, goes right here. So we're gonna do the same thing on page 5. that is the end of the small flap. So that is the whole kit and caboodle. So we've got this large tag that slips in, the ephemera card, and then we've got 3 pieces here. This is a nice deep pocket, another flap, and then another 3-piece, and then these flaps. So that's all of page 4. So now we have this last section here for page 5, and we will be done with page 4 and 5. Dry fit goes this way. So I have the crowns. I'm going to open that and make sure you got crowns on the bottom, cream on the top. So as usual, in this album, I'm working with what I always use, which is a 1/16 of an inch border. So basically, every mat is 1/8 smaller than the black cardstock measurement, less any hinge that 1/4 inch hinge that you might have added. So that's what my mats are. Some people like a larger mat, but I like a really tight, especially if the collection I'm working with is make sure I've got that going. Yeah, light colored like this is. Contrast page. And for the most part, I try to do that same matte border for everything, whether it's a tag or on a page. I try to keep it very consistent. It's my kind of design aesthetic. Everybody's kind of got their own little thing, and that's fine. I'm really fussy about right angles and managing my margins. And that's one of the reasons you won't see me use a lot of decorative corner punches. It's because you can't really offset it exactly. That drives me nuts unless you have 2 different punches, one inside the other. If you use one punch and cut both the mat and the core cardstock, it doesn't inset just right. So that kind of bugs me. I know that's silly, but that's my thing. That's my hang up. That's probably a niche market. Somebody should do a better job of making those inset corner chompers where you have a little bit more of a choice, because the one that's very popular is too big of a border for me. Okay, now I have a little piece already trimmed. What did I do with it? All right, it's here somewhere. Hang tight. Here it is. Princess. So easy to lose things, even just turning them over, they look so different. All right. I'm just verifying that's the top, that's the bottom, so I've got everything going the right direction. Get my little strip down and we're done with 4 and 5. I know you thought it would never end. Okay, the princess is going in the right direction. And it's not dry yet, and it's too large, so I'm going to trim a smidge off. my scissors. Going on between these two pages. Okay. Look, looky, looky. This is my favorite layout right here. These colors are just so rich. Okay. Now